What's happening, guys? I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. As you can see, on Friday, I took a little bit of time off, which was a goal of 2021. I always say that I'm going to, and I never do. So this year, I've already done it a little bit less than a handful, but almost a handful of times, and that is baby steps to going into the right direction. So. We'll see what happens this summer. My goal is to take a little bit more, at least afternoons off, because last year, I was just glued. The market was insane. The market's still insane, but sometimes you gotta figure out what matters. So, as you can see, my daughter was flying down the mountain, and that is her 8th time going. So I think it's going to be a pretty fun winter each and every single year, especially if she can, start doing the big mountain and keep up. So, one housekeeping note. Sometimes people PM me in chat or DM me on Twitter and they say, hey, what did you mean by that reply on YouTube with the WhatsApp number and account management and all that kind of stuff? First and foremost, we will never solicit anybody's money. We will never manage any capital. I trade only my money. And on top of that, we don't reply with a WhatsApp number or anything like that. So typically that's a spam bot in the comments. So if you do get it, just click and you can see that they've just joined, just maybe a month ago or something like that. But don't believe anything in the comment section that has an Investors Underground reply. I use my personal one that says Nathan Michaud, as well as if Cam replies, then he's using the Investors Underground one. But we will never solicit with a WhatsApp number, or for that matter, try to manage any capital. So I warn every single week, but for whatever reason, people still fall for it, and they believe the 80% returns or whatever people are guaranteeing them. But as you should know, but unfortunately a lot don't know, that's not legit. So let's talk about what we've got this week. So I'm going to try to fly through this as usual, as I always say that, because I've got a Traders for a Cause podcast with Michelle. Many of you guys know from IU, who is a swing trader. We're doing it with Zach. If you haven't checked it out yet, Zach's been doing a couple, I think 3, this will be the 4th one, podcast. We're just going to kind of expand that out and talk to different traders, and really get different views on the market and thoughts, and he's pretty good at it. So on that note of Traders for Cause, I put a link for the newsletter. So we're going to be doing our spring event soon. We're still doing it virtually. It's a little bit too much to commit to going to Vegas for October. We had a lot of success with the spring event. We had a lot of success with the October event. So we're doing both virtually this year, and the reason for that is you've got to commit by June or July. You got to sign all the papers and really who knows how people are going to feel in the next couple months. So if it was a decision to make in October, I feel like a lot of people would go, but we just don't know. So rather than have a headache, rather than have to do a bunch of stuff and then unwind it, we're going to do another year of virtual, which is great because we hit tens of thousands of traders, and as you guys know, it's free. If you guys enjoy it, if you like it, leave a donation. We ended up raising, we had our best year ever. I don't remember what we raised, but we're well into $1.5 million so far with Traders for a Cause since inception. So this week, like I said, buckle up. Stimulus checks are coming, and some people, when I mention that, they're like, that's not what it's for. It's for the economy. It's for these people that need to pay their bills and things like that. Yeah, I agree. That's what it was supposed to be for. But there are surveys and data points that have been kind of generated that suggest that most people are actually putting into the market Bitcoin and things like that. So although it's not funny, I mean, I don't really know. That's what the reality is. So we've got to accept that. We've got to be prepared for it. And I feel like this past week and a half was kind of building up everybody's excitement because we had some insane movers. I mean, I'm talking multi-100% type moves that held and then went another couple 100%. And we haven't actually had that. We've had a lot of big movers, but they usually just kind of fade off, right? It's one big squeeze and they fade off. These ones are actually lasting not only the full day, but then after hours and then the next morning. And if it's something like eyes, I mean, it's just catching shorts off guard like crazy. And I think that as a short seller, short trader, once again, you have to adapt to the current situation. And I'll go over that in a moment as far as seeing the same thing over and over, and whether or not you've either adapted or at least seen the trend. But with that said, it all comes down to consistency and making sure that you're doing the same thing over and over, coming prepared. And just like we talked about last week, the market correction, right? We hit bear market. Not really. I know the definition is not what happened over the last week and a half, but as I said, we could overextend to the downside, go a lot further than a lot of people thought on, all these SPACs and, take Plug, FCEL, NEO, all those big types of trades. And they went a lot further than a lot of people thought. But most importantly, once they bounce, do not underestimate how high they can go, right? As much as we didn't think they could go that low, well, they can go a lot higher than you think. And it's not necessarily that that's where they're going to hang out at and that's where they're going to end at. What it is it's going to overshoot to the downside, overshoot to the upside, and then find somewhere probably, I would say, even higher than the middle. I was going to say find somewhere in the middle, but I would almost suggest that it's going to be, maybe a little bit higher. What else we got? So stimulus coming, get prepared. Okay, so Friday we've got quadruple witching this Friday, which is typically some crazy market moves into the close. The last 5-10 minutes, you can make a lot of money, you can lose a lot of money. Something to be aware of. Sometimes there are some big opportunities from market on close orders until after hours and things like that. If you don't know what you're doing, stay away. NFTs. We had a huge, I think it was 69 million that was bid for the rights, the virtual rights. I don't even know how to explain it. I've watched a couple of videos on it, but pretty much a game changer in the NFT industry, and made huge waves, made huge news. And I got to tell you, Cody was all over that. And I laughed at the idea that 2 years ago, a year ago, 6 months ago, he's always too early, right? But he's actually right on. And then he always gets the last laugh. For example, he had bought some, virtual property that's now worth a lot. And he bought some artwork for $70, and he just sold it this week for $45,000, which, I don't even know what to think or how to even formulate an opinion about what I think about that. But you know what? He saw it coming, and, it's still, the idea is still in its infancy. And most people don't even know what it is. So, right, you kind of hear about this Bitcoin, then you start to Google it. You hear about GameStop, you start to Google it, right? So I feel like last week put NFTs on the map. You got Rob Gronkowski coming out with his player cards, and there's a lot of exposure on those names. So what you kind of, you see some of these moves on Kodak. So for me, Kodak, FDMSF, PONGF, YVR, and OCG might be ways to play the NFT craze. Kodak being probably the best opportunity for a listed name. The other OTCs that I listed, they're in scan, so you'll be able to see them. But I think that we have to remember that we're just breaking the surface of what is NFT? What are these things? So keep that in mind. And if these things start to build, you actually could see some pretty powerful moves. And I do think that this is going to start to generate a lot more interest. And if Ethereum and Bitcoin continue to go, I think it's just going to get better and better. So we'll see. But keep that in mind, just that sometimes you see these big moves and you're like, all right, that was great. That was a good move. But what if that's just the first uptick, part of a major trend starting to form? So that's just some thoughts there. The big one that I wanted to talk about today is and the reason why I wore this shirt is, it's a reminder that, it's okay to take profits. You don't have to get the entire move, right? If you're trying to be a hero right now and get that whole move, we're just not in that market, right? So sometimes you see me be ultra patient and be, in the morning and it's fading off and, it's continued to fail throughout the day. And a lot of those times the volume is tracking for, a subpar volume compared to either what they could potentially sell or compared to a prior day that might have been acting as resistance. And that all comes into play. However, in this current market, we're talking about 100, 200, 500, 700 million shares traded on some of these names, which we haven't seen. We've seen it, but we haven't seen this consistently over and over and over again. I would say maybe 2 years ago for like a week or two, but we haven't seen it ever. And so this is new. And it's all these 5 to 15 million share floats where, in my eyes, is probably some type of mathematical equation that these funds and algorithms figure out. Okay, well, if it trades X, then we know, it's going to be spread out across X amount of traders, and it should trade, relatively clean. And we've seen it over and over and over again. So, what I'm talking about, the names that I'm talking about is, something like EYES and XELA and ENTX and NLSP. What you want to be looking for is how fast that volume compounds, right? So, if it goes from 1 million to 3 million to 5 to 10 to 20, relatively quickly, they're flipping that float. They're flipping it over and over and over again. Whereas another name, maybe it's, got, 800,000 volume, goes to 1.2, 1.8, it's just kind of right? And, there's never that churn, that flip of volume, or, if you had size, that opportunity to get out and then somebody else gets in and repeat. The more volume you have, you're starting to create new bases, right? Anybody that wanted to sell could sell. Anybody that wanted to buy could buy. Repeat, next level, repeat, next level. And so when that happens and you've got all this volume, 100, 200, 300 million, it starts to spread. So it goes from, the hands of a few with size to the hands of many with, little size. And it's hard to hold size through all this stuff. There's a lot of fake outs. There's a lot of pullbacks. What's interesting to me is the lines that they're, if you look left, if you look at where they're basing things and then they break it out, a lot of times they come back and retest that level. A lot of times they make this ceiling, and they're just making this ceiling for a later time where they can just blast through it. And a lot of times, if you're watching the tape, if you're watching the action, you'll see them come in there. And, I get into this stuff in the Traders Lounge as it happens. I tell everybody to record and review, and because you can start to see them starting to play around with the tape, and you'll start to see huge offers come in, which normally would signal, big seller, weakness, it's over. But if there's huge offers and then there's this like little mini bid and it just absorbs everything, then you can safely assume, not safely, I guess, but you could assume, because there's always market risk, but you could assume that is part of their game plan. They're trying to make you think that it's over. They're trying to make you think there's a huge seller. Meanwhile, they're soaking here, hidden, right? Iceberg order, whatever term you want to use, right? So if they're showing 100 shares or 500 shares or 5,000 shares, and a couple 100,000 shares go down because everybody freaks out because they're showing a couple 100,000 shares on the offer, that's part of their game plan. And whether or not they pull that offer or maybe it's, swiped and they rip right through. A lot of people make decisions based off what they see. And if they make a decision based off what they see on the offer and all of a sudden it's either gone or they swipe through it, how do you exit, right? And so as we saw, we had some crazy circuit halts. They are fully in tune with, market sentiment and what causes people to panic and freak out, circuit halts and all that kind of stuff. So I would remind you of, I've said this a couple times before, and when I was, I don't remember how many years ago this was, but, when I kept on doing the same thing over and over, and, I was having a conversation with my broker, and he just said, something that, maybe I could have taken offense to it, but it was not advice, but it was a real comment that hit home. And it was, Nate, you're doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. If you saw eyes, you saw what happened. The next day you saw XELA, you saw what happened. The next day you saw ENTX, you saw what happened. And then Friday you saw NLSP. If you came to the market every single day and expected it to be different, if you got run over each and every single day on those names and you didn't respect the trend, you're doing the same thing over and over and you're expecting different results, which the definition of that, which hit home to me, is insanity, right? So if your broker ever calls you insane, you should take note. If you thought that NLSP was going to be different than ENTX and it was going to be different than XELA, and you thought it was going to be different than eyes, then you're insane, right? So for those of you guys that needed to hear that, it worked for me. It was my wake-up call, right? And so I think that, come Monday, if you've got that churner where it goes 1 million to 3 to 5 to 10, there's always that one that might stuff everybody, trap everybody on the long side, and pull back. That's fine. I'm not talking about getting long. I have a hard time getting long on these trades. But I'm talking about knowing not to short, knowing not to fight short. It's fine to short the front side, but knowing if this level holds, you got to get out. If it breaks out and starts to base higher, you got to get out. And what I'm talking about is when that does happen, you going back, well, maybe this time's different. Maybe this time it'll stay heavy. Maybe it'll do this. Maybe it'll do that. You just saw it 3, 4, 5 times in a row. The current market loves 100, 200, 300 million tracking type volume names. And the good part about it is they're actually holding. They're actually holding for multiple days, which is great because that means more people are making more money. And the only ones that are not are fighting it. And how that all comes back to the shirt is that, if you're trying to get that full move, something like ENTX or NLSP, I had great entries, great fades. You take the meat of the move. It starts to go sideways. It starts to kind of base. It starts to curl. You're fighting with a potential beast in this market. And as you saw, every single one of these has come back. And my friend, a friend that I talk about often, as a trader, he was like, hey, this ENTX is my setup, potential of, failed follow throughout the day. And I said, yes. However, look at XELA. Look at how they treated that name and what they did within, the first half an hour of the day. And so that went from his main watch to his secondary watch for maybe something after 10 a.m. because you don't know what's going to happen with these things off the open. And especially if you're trying to build your account, you're either going to build it or you're going to cut it in half. So sometimes the best trade is no trade on names like this. Let's see what else we have. Opportunity. Yes. Don't try to get every last square inch of the move. And that is the current mistake in this market. Moving, not moving on, trying to overstay. And I'll tell you on Friday, I always say, if I have FOMO, shoulda, coulda, woulda, done all that kind of stuff. But do you ever look at what you did right And so NLSP, I covered so I could go skiing with my daughter, right? What did NLSP do the rest of the day? Ramped right back up. So it was actually more profitable probably for me to leave. Take that meat and leave, because I might have had a bias for the short side. I might have overstayed. I might have been letting a good trade work. It is very, very easy to do in this market to let a good trade work, but then all of a sudden, swipe, they rip it back up. So if you get a good piece, one rule of thumb that I've been using right now, if you get a good piece of it and it was a relatively easy fade, lock in, take profits, okay? Because if you nailed it and it flushed out and it wasn't too many headaches, there's a good chance that it wasn't too many headaches for a lot of other people, right? And if everybody's on the same page, everybody's killing it, everybody just made a bunch of money and they haven't covered yet, you've got the edge covering. Sure, it might go lower, but you know what? You're going to stay out of those situations with ENTX and all those other ones that go into circuit halts and break accounts. And the problem with 100, 200, 300 million shares is you start to trade larger and larger and larger, but the float does not change. So normally you might trade a little bit less and it's trading 30 to 50 million shares and it's pretty safe. But in this market, you feel safe trading, just for example, if you were normally to trade 20, 30 to 50,000 shares on a particular name, maybe that sounds crazy to a lot of people. Maybe it's 2, 3, or 5,000 shares, okay? And that's what you would typically trade on a trade like this. That's trading 50 to 100 million shares. When it's trading 200, 300, 500 plus, it's okay to trade 100, 200,000 shares, right? But nothing has changed with the float. So if and when they want to reverse that thing, it is still thin. And you are in 4 or 5x what you normally would be in, because you've based your size off the volume. So you have to understand that that is an additional risk when you're trading these types with such high volume, because at the end of the day, it's a thin name. It's still a thin name. And when you're trading a thin name and you have 4 or 5x size, it comes by surprise. And if it does an ENTX and it rips up $2, $3, that's a lot of money real fast. So be aware of that. Last couple comments. For example, on ENTX, right? Complete unwind into the close. So, that was a nice short fade into the close, but then it ripped back up after hours. One thing I want to challenge anybody that was long that got bailed out. Was it a reckless trade? Right? We always look at our losses and we say, okay, I know what I did wrong. But this is, I've said this before, look at your winners. How did you get there? Were you just down huge and you just got lucky after hours, it ramped back up? Did it do everything, different than what you had expected? And it closed at the lows and you were like, oh, I should have sold. And you didn't. And then you just got bailed out after hours, right? Did you make reckless decisions and get paid out for it? And what happens is we look at, oh, I made a bunch of money. I killer trade. I did a great job. But when that happens again, and it doesn't do that after hours, you just got smoked, right? So always look at your trade, especially the ones that got bailed out. You know who you are. Maybe some people, maybe not. But if you got bailed out because of that after hours move, and it did nothing that you expected during the day, you broke every rule, you didn't stop out, you added into a loser, and you got bailed out, that was reckless. So keep that in mind. Last but not least, before we get into the scan for tomorrow, we are, as always, if you're interested in coming on board at Investors Underground, every now and then we have our sales. We have our Survive and Thrive event or sale right now. I think that it is important, as always, to learn process over profits. A lot of people want to be told what to do. A lot of people DM me and PM me, and they're in a position. They say, "Hey, what do I do with this? I was thinking it was going to go here, but I'm stuck and I don't know what to do with it." You need to have a plan before you go in. Okay, we're not here to tell you what to buy and sell. That's not what we do. We're not here to advise you on any trade whatsoever. IU was built because there's nothing else like it out there. If I did not build IU, I would be looking for a community that is similar, somewhere where people gather. They're all full-time veteran traders combined with new traders that are learning, but it's a real-time market environment. You get to see, news hitting real time. You get to see, traders trading real time. You get to see it all. And really you learn a lot by watching, viewing, rewatching. And it's about creating the right foundation and investing in yourself. So if you guys have any questions, if you guys are interested, the link will be in the description. And now is the time to get involved, because we do this maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and this is one of those times. So again, if you have any questions, reach out, Cam at investorsunderground.com, and we'll get right into the main watches for tonight, which there's not that many. It's going to be about coming prepared to the market, coming early, seeing what's happening, and getting prepared. All right, so first and foremost, Brandon Miller, you've got the free t-shirt this week. Thank you for leaving a comment. As always, I forgot to mention, you guys did a phenomenal job on the key takeaways. So if you ever just leave the timestamp, if it's at 1 minute, 34 seconds, 1:34, 11 minutes, 34 seconds, whatever it is, if you just post that, other people can click the link and rewatch it. It helps us. We're starting to pull some of that stuff out. We're starting to use that as some good content to expand on and help other traders. So I really appreciate you guys for taking the time to do that. As always, leave a like if you can. It helps us help you. And let's get right into it. As always, disclosure is right at the bottom, and it's in the description. You guys can click it and check it out. We are not suggesting buy or sell any securities. These are my ideas. It's for entertainment, educational, not entertainment. It's for educational and informational purposes only. There is a little entertainment thrown in there too. But, make sure you have a plan. Make sure you know what you're doing. Don't trade anybody else's plan. If you see, a trade setting up, that's what it's all about. It's about understanding the why. And as that trade sets up, if you start to see that setting up, if you start to see the proper risk for versus reward, that is the goal of what I'm doing here. I'm trying to share what, in my eyes, looks like a good trade and why. And if and when that sets up, that's something that I would consider taking. So this week, there's a lot of trades out there for sure, and normally I have like these 1 or 2 names that I'm like, all right, this is my focus right off the open. And I can do that on Sunday. This week, however, there's a couple trades that I'm interested in that I'm watching, but there's nothing that I am like, this is the one. And so what's going to happen is come Monday, I'm going to need to get prepared as far as, what on my watch list is starting to work. And what's not. And I do have a lot of watches. I do have things that I'm prepared for. I do have things that I'm swinging. But I am not super, super excited about anything right off the open. And the reason for that is this type of market, you wake up and you've got 100, 200, 300% movers, right? So right away, those potentially go to the top. Now, that might be the top of the list for me, but if you're a new trader, it should probably be an avoid. Right? These are the attention seekers. And the attention seekers are the ones that are going to steal all your attention from the easier trades. Not easy trades, but the easier. Right? And when everybody's watching the ones that are going nuts, these other ones are sneaking by, either slowly trending up or slowly trending down, and you were prepared for them, but your eyes were like that towards the one that was making all the noise. So for me, as I kind of prepare, if you guys remember JKS, I've been talking about VIAC being, kind of like a mini JKS, right? Or maybe not a mini anymore. And so if you remember JKS, there was a lot of, pullbacks, go, pullback, go, pullback, go. And, it continued to go, and then there was that peak day where it was an insane unwind. That's what I want. And I think we've got it coming on VIAC and DISCA. Both steady, both, going with each other. And, I think that the volume's starting to pick up. It's about 40 million on Friday on VIAC. I think we're going to have a great opportunity. But here's the thing. You don't need, in my eyes, to be aggressive right off the open, right? We all get like, oh, I missed it. It's down $2. It would have been nice. I'm not going for a $2 trade here. This is going to have a $10 to $15 pullback when it's time. Now, does that mean that it's, it's going to be a good short from here? Well, you know what? It might be a good short back to here, right? If it goes to 120, then that 15, 20 pullback is going to actually still be higher than this level. So the point being is just because I'm starting to hawk it and focus in does not mean that I think it's topped. What I want to focus on is how is it trading? Is it trading different? Is it starting to fail? And remember that the biggest move comes after the big move, right? So just like JKS was squeezing, flushed down like $5 and came back a little bit, faded off another $10, right? So we always try to get that top. We always have that FOMO. We're trying to find the top. We get exhausted. And that's what I want to avoid here. I don't want to get exhausted. And I want to remember that the big move comes after the first move. And, just because it pulls back does not mean we need to pile in. Just because it pulls back does not mean we missed it. So from my eyes, I'm going to be looking at key levels every single day. I'll set up price alerts, right? So, you can kind of see that there's, some bases that have kind of formed in the 9250s, 9350s. And each day that it continues to go, I would probably set price alerts to the downside. So that the day that it's kind of sneaking lower and then sneaking lower and it keeps on alerting me, I'll be there. But until then, let's go higher. Let's go 100, 120. I don't care. But these two are definitely on watch. And there's going to be a great trade. Be cautious trying to find the top. Be cautious, just slamming into it because you feel like you missed out. But, the higher these go, it's been a steady grind. And as you guys know, the slow, steady grinds are the ones that can kill you. You want to focus on when things start to speed up. And you don't even need to get the top. After they pull back, you've still got all that unwind to go. So be aware, be cautious. Next up is NFT names. I briefly mentioned this in the first part of the scan tonight. And the thing about these Kodak, most of you guys are familiar with this trade. It's been pretty steady, and I've been in it for a couple days now, and I'm just kind of letting it trade. Yeah, maybe I could be selling at 10 and looking to buy back lower, but I've done that plenty of times, and then I'm like, oh, why did I'm never going to end up buying the same size that I have. So, like I said, we could be in the infancy of this sort of NFT idea, and if we are, then these things should technically start to build over the next, couple weeks or a couple months. So do I think that it's just going to go nuts tomorrow? No. Would I like it to? Sure. But these next four or five, OCG and YVR, these ones are kind of like those sympathy type trades that if Kodak were to go crazy and these other two OTCs, which I'll show, FD, MSF, and PONGF. So all of these I am long. I've been trading them long. I got long PONGF and FDMSF with Cody. He's been all over those. Fantastic calls by him. He's always early. And not in a bad way. Just like nobody cares about it for like 2 years. And then all of a sudden it's like, told you so. So good for him. He's a great resource for understanding sectors and ideas and these big ideas, for lack of a better word. Whether it's the pop movement, whether it be mushroom names, whether it be AR and all this type of activity, he saw a long time ago. And so that's his strength. And that's why I surround myself with him, because he's good at picking that stuff out. He's an okay guy too on the side as well. But the main reason I stick around is just because he's very smart at what he does. But with that said, Kodak, I would say, would be the main listed name. If all of these start to go, I could see people picking up OCG and YVR. YVR's tried to kind of break out a couple times. You can see that it's had trouble at 250s. Again, it's not, I'm not buying these to let's look for a breakout tomorrow. This is kind of like a big picture. If it starts to build, I'd like to build my position. If it doesn't, then that's fine. Maybe I'm still early. But so far, so good. Good entries on pretty much all of these. And, FDM, FDMSF, I'm in the 2019, 20, 22 range, and PONGF. I don't have as good of an average, but Cody was in there relatively early. Plus, they had news that Stapes posted the other day, and I kind of added to the position from there. So I've got a sector swing on, and we'll see how that progresses. Failed follow through. So failed follow through, as you guys know, and again, I mention often, if you go to the description, you can click through. You can see I've written out my ideas as well as verbally here, but you could also see that I break it down into different sections. So failed follow through is basically the section that I am looking for trades to kind of push, fail, and I want those dip buyers to become pop sellers. So instead of ramps up, comes back a little bit, higher low, goes again, higher low, I want it to be the opposite. So NLSP is an example of that. We've got a nice pushback after hours. So if we were to open around here, I think 650s. I think obviously this 6 range, this is pretty much VWAP, is going to be a key level. This type has been opening, this might open at 7 or 8, at 4 a.m. and then quickly fade back to 6. And then they fade it into 7 a.m., they lock shorts, and then they go again. It's a relatively thin name. And, sure, they've got some paper to dump if they want, but compared to the volume, maybe not that big of a deal. And, I think that you should be ultra aware that this could ramp back at 10:30 a.m. I think you should be prepared for that. And until you see exhaustion after exhaustion after exhaustion, I don't feel comfortable shorting size, on a second day, unless we see, people getting worked out. And, you saw that on XELA. Huge squeeze into almost a circuit halt, just a couple, I think a day after the big move. So it was right here. So you had this big move this day, and then this day right here, right at 9:45 and then 10 a.m., we had that big circuit. So if you positioned off the open, you either got squeezed out or you were a nervous wreck for a moment. And ENTX traders on Friday were not so lucky, because this was one of those situations where it's, $6.15 to $9, almost $10 per share. That's a lot. Even if you were in a small position, 5,000-10,000 shares, that's a big drawdown for a lot of people. That could be half your account. That could be your whole account. When you're really not prepared for, even if you gave yourself 50-cent risk and all of a sudden it runs $3, into circuits, and you don't act perfectly, it's a little wild. So that's why anything that has ridiculous volume, 100, 200, 300 million, maybe even 500 million, you got to take a step back, especially if you're new. But at any rate, NLSP, higher the better. I want to see people get exhausted out, just like I explained. ENTX, same deal. Higher the better. I always like to look at, where was the area prior that it had trouble. And, you can kind of just look back and see 750s and probably 620s. So, I would expect that, if it's in between those levels, you don't really have an edge. It could go either way. It could be choppy. I'd want to be seeing it fail, and I would want to see it squeeze out over this level. So reactive trades, over 750s, pops versus 750s below it, but I wouldn't expect this to really give it up unless 620s faded. And on that note, you can see on eyes, it came back up really nicely. And so what the point here is that things are not dying. Things are sticking around. They're so spread out among so many traders that you have to adapt and not look for the patience trade, not look for well, I'm up $2 per share, so maybe I can get another $1 if I hold it overnight. Yeah, maybe. Or you could lose $3. So that's not. I don't care about the overnight trade. I'm not going to hold any of these things overnight. It's just not worth it. I'd rather sleep well. I'm not going to get up at 4 a.m. I did that for a little while with GameStop and AMC, and you start to be a zombie by the end of the week. Yeah, it was record-breaking or record opportunity type days, but if you try to do that every single day, this becomes a job rather than something that you can be passionate about and fun. Seal the goal. I left, but early on Friday. But the goal that I told the room, I said ideally it does a timber style move, but not after hours, but does it intraday. So we had exactly that. We had the nice breakout and then the fail. And so that's what Seal ended up doing. It was nice, breakout, comes back, fails, and nice unwind throughout the day. So, a situation like this, I always look, kind of left. So ideally we get, back up into the 520 range, something like that. Blow off any other potential shorts that are left, and then maybe come back in. What else we got? RVLX. So far, it's been pretty steadily down. We had that IPO day where it went nuts. And then we also, let's see, we had the IPO day. I don't see, there we go. So IPO day, right over here, consolidated around 68, 69, 70 range. And then Cathie Wood bought after hours, it rocketed. And then the 4 a.m. club came in and shot it up over 90s. It's been steadily down since. I could see it consolidating in this range, but we might want to test 65s first. That was kind of a key level on the IPO day, or excuse me, 68, 69 level. But I was thinking that it could potentially flush to 65 before it resets around 68, 69 level, which was key level on IPO day. FLGT and ALRM. FLGT, higher the better. I'm just looking at these daily charts, both of which could be potential unwinders. Nothing I'm super excited about, but something that I will set price alerts for. But it just feels like the momentum has shifted. That could change in one day. It could gap and go $10 tomorrow. So I'm not coming in with a plan to short, but I am coming in with a plan to watch and see if it stays heavy versus 9:45, 10 a.m. And if it does, then we have a potential trade. The next section, again, if you click the description, you can see this is under the continuation section. Craig has been coming back. You guys know that one. Nice little move after hours too. It went over 10. But so far good. This one, you guys know I've been involved since 6s and 7s. And I had a fantastic trade going, and I should have sold it all, in hindsight, but ended up coming back with the market. That was a pretty big swing on it, but I had a good average. It is what it is. And so anyway, it's coming back, tiny float. If this ever got a PR, this could be one of those ones that we're looking at that does 15, 20, something silly. So that's why I've been pretty patient given my average. But I think as with anything, if it does have any good moves, it's probably smart to lock in along the way as well. PDSB, letting this trade work. You can see this is a great looking left example. So, this kind of went right back and retested this level. I positioned in on that Thursday. I still am long. It came back a lot more than I thought, actually. I was buying, 5s and it went to 7. It was a nice trade. But my goal was big picture. So, I probably gave it too much of a leash. but so far so good. I think you've got this volume day. Let's see if we start to base. If we start to base, we could be in for I'm thinking personally a bigger picture trade versus just the momentum trade. On that note, we've got this daily chart here. One that I wanted to, now I'm going to draw a blank on what the stock was. Oh, fun. Just kind of keeping with the theme of I took this trade, but it's not really a watch for tomorrow. But keeping with the theme of when I see something similar, looking left kind of idea. You can see that this 3 level, there's wicks that go over it, right? It ramps up, comes back, ramps up, comes back. But generally, it closes under that 3 level. So we know that 3 is a huge level. So that is, I posted this on Twitter, by the way. But this is a great example of why I took that short. I didn't short it at 3. I waited for it to pull back and then retest and fail. But a great example of the setup, looking left for clarity. And on that note, how could I have traded PDSB a little bit better? Yeah, I could assume that 7 was going to be the top. I could have shaved off a whole bunch. If it ramped through and based again and held 7, I could re-add that. But I could have traded that better in the sense that, hey, the chart suggests that it might have trouble here. It might need to test it a few times before it gets through. So I always look at how I could better myself. RYB, so far so good. This was a swing idea on Thursday. Nice breakout. Hit the scanner early for the continuation scanner, and it just kept on going. So I bought the weakness, and then I added some on Friday, and I'm just kind of letting this work, and we'll see what happens. Nice float up. These are the ones that can go nuts if they want to. BGI, you guys know I've mentioned this multiple times for weeks now. Solid position, solid entry. So I'm in in this range over here. It's been on Sunday scan for weeks now. I'm just letting it work. Whether or not it continues to go from here, we'll see. But as long as it holds an overall trend, I'm letting it work and see if we take the next leg up towards 5 or 7 or whatever, or if we start to peak out at 350. There was a 13 G that came out with somebody that took a 5% stake recently. SYN, so far so good. Just have a position here. I bought on the Maxim 250 target that came out. I posted it at 72 cents. And I let the trade work. I took some off and then I repositioned, but I let the trade work. And if Monday ramps up and it fails, versus these highs, then I'll be done with the trade. If it opens relatively weak and doesn't do anything, I'll be done with the trade. CYH, no position. Oh, OGI, I forgot. OGI, this one I bought with the sector move on Thursday, held it over for a gapper. Actually had a weak open, came back strong, sold some, carrying the rest. I will look to let this trend as long as it wants and then flip to the short side once it fails. A couple other watches and no positions. Actually, SLGG I have small. Right sector, right time right now. We just need to see confirmation over 7. I've been sized in it a couple times and minimized the trade each and every single time. That could be all part of the longer term kind of somebody's positioning, but they're not in a rush type situation. And if that's the case, then 7 base will confirm those thoughts. If 7 started to base over the next week or 2 or 3, then I would assume that there's going to be a lot of shorts in there and we could have a potential longer term 7 to 10 to 15 type trade. Until then, I want to assume that it's going to fail. I do have some, but if I'm going to size into it, I need to be proven right. CYH, no position here. Like the chart, potential breakout. SIF, no position here. Like the chart, potential breakout. I'm going to be watching for positions on both of those. The other 2, PFMT, same deal. No position, looking to position. I put this on scan throughout the week, but I didn't take the trade. VNTR, same deal. Like the chart, looking to position for potential breakout. I always look for dips, 450s as sort of a guide on this. 5 for confirmation, and continue to scale from there. Last but not least, LIZI. There's definitely a buyer on the tape at this moment. We're nearing that gap fill. This thing loves to move. This could have a short-term kind of squeeze out, over 12 if it wants. It looks like it's kind of dancing and setting up for something. So it's definitely been trading super thin. And there's been some huge offers, and then they pull them, and it feels like somebody's trying to keep it down. And then they let it go. So that is pretty much it. I do have a couple other things, current trends to be aware of. I don't want to overload scan, but I'd like to be aware that the reopening trade is present. And for example, we've got AAL, we've got some airlines going, we've got steel names. You've got X, you've got CLF, you've got TMST. I want to be aware that that sector is moving. I want to have that list available so that if X starts to pull back, I've got some other trades too. And I want to be aware that retail is back. You've got all these retail type names that you could be trading. They're all starting to kind of move in tandem. As usual, I like to watch M as sort of that main, index, if you will. But it's going to be an interesting week. I've got some other ones staying familiar. Those are always names that I just put price alerts on, and just kind of stay familiar with them. I've seen it, and now if I see it on scan, I can react that much quicker. Bitcoin names are going to be crazy. You've got Riot, you've got CAN, you've got EBON and MARA, is a ton of them. But it's over 62, not anymore, 60,050. I think. Yeah. So, let's see what happens. We've got a powerful week ahead. Remember, you do not need to be a hero. You do not need to get the whole move. Take the meat of the move and move on. Take profits for a living. If you guys have any questions, reach out. Like I said, right now we're doing the Survive and Thrive sale, and our focus is creating traders. It's not follow the leader. It's not how to be a sheep. It is learning a process that you can actually do this and turn it from a hobby into something that could be a career. So as always, if you have questions, reach out, leave a comment, leave a like. If you put the timestamp, it helps us. And it helps others because they get to see your key takeaway. Next week, we'll be giving away a lot of different stuff. So that's it. Have a good weekend, guys.